Thanks everyone that's with us nice and early, or on time, I should say. We'll get started in just a minute. Okay. Got some people in the audience, so I think we will get started. So I'll say hello and welcome to the final session of the 2025 ACS and SDSN Australia, New Zealand and Pacific Regional Forum, putting education for the SDGs into practice in higher education. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands from which we all are joining from today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'd like to extend those respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and all Indigenous peoples across our region. I would personally like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, who are the traditional custodians on the unceded land in which I work and live. My name is Rhiannon Boyd and I'm the CEO of ACS, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the closing session of this forum alongside our partner SDSN Australia, New Zealand and Pacific, and a big thanks to my co-host Tal Keston for all her work in coordinating this event over the last couple of weeks. It has been a powerful couple of weeks of learning, reflection and inspiration, and we're really grateful to all the speakers that we've had and the audience that have joined us over the series. So we've only scratched the surface of the many critical topics that are a part of this forum, and there's so much more for us to explore and to action for the agenda of mainstreaming education for the SDGs. So ACS and SDSN will continue this work and continue working together in this space. And we already have some future conversations planned for later in the year that will expand on some of the themes that we've covered as part of this forum, as well as looking into some other areas that we haven't had the chance to cover this time around. So please do stay connected with us. There will be more on this to come. But for today's session, I'm just going to give a quick housekeeping note before we get started. Quite a few people have been asking about recordings. There will be recordings. All registrants will receive an email next week, and that will have access to the recordings from all 4 sessions, along with any key resources that have been shared throughout the forum. So that email will also contain links to subscribe to the ACS and SDSN mailing lists, and we do recommend you do so. It's the best way to keep up to date with us, as well as all the opportunities from our organisations. That email will also have a feedback survey, so we really do welcome feedback and input from those across the sector. So do take some time to complete that and give us your thoughts and ideas on this forum and how we can improve and continue with the conversation. So over the last couple of weeks, we've explored how higher education can put the ambitions of SDG 4.7 into practice. And today's conversation turns that into one of the most powerful levers for doing so, and that's our educators. So this final session is focused on how we can support and empower educators across the whole of institution to integrate education for sustainable development into their teaching practice. So today we'll hear how institutions across the region are tackling this. And to guide us through this session, I'm very delighted to welcome our moderator, Jen Dollin. Jen's the Director of Sustainability Education and Partnerships at Western Sydney University. She's an incredibly passionate advocate for transforming education and has played a key role in embedding sustainability across Western Sydney University, which is an institution that's really widely recognised for its leadership in this space. So Jen will be sharing some of the incredible work that Western Sydney has been doing to empower educators and foster a whole of institution engagement with ESD as well. So thank you for joining us. And with that, I'm now going to hand over to Jen, who's going to kick off the session and introduce our speakers. So over to you, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm just delighted to be here and share. And I always reiterate, we learn our way forward together. So thank you for the kind acknowledgement of WSU. But as you'll see today, there are many paths up the mountain, and that's what we're going to share collaboratively. I want to start by acknowledging I'm here on Barramadigal country, which is part of the Darug Nation. And I want to acknowledge First Nations wisdom and perspectives from across the world, and particularly a shout out to our dear friends and colleagues across the Tasman in Aotearoa. I guess a couple of key points I just want to raise, and then I'll just touch on very briefly what Western Sydney has been doing. Education is a catalyst for change. So this is a really exciting session from my perspective, because catalysts for change require actors to enact that, and that is academics and educators. In 1974, and pardon me, I think a number of you have probably heard this quote before, but in 1974, Fred Shoemaker said, "If still more education is to save us, it has to be of education of a different kind, an education that gets to the depths of things." And that's exactly what we're talking about when we talk about education for sustainability, education for the SDGs, and education for sustainable development. It is education that requires students to grasp key concepts, but also to critically engage with the world, the complexity of the world, and to learn how to take action. So it's not transmissive, it's transformative education. At Western Sydney University, we've thought long and hard about how we do this, and how we do this with different disciplines and across different practices. And we work primarily through a graduate attribute. We've conceptualised a graduate attribute with three core key criteria on sustainability. This is a gold standard, by the way. It's not perfect. Thank you for the acknowledgement of our leadership here, but we continue to learn with each other. And this is how we think the gold standard of a graduate attribute for sustainability is at Western Sydney University. And it has three core components, which is think, care, and do. And that is the critical part for us in how we see our students graduating from our university, in learning how to actually take and make change. So there is a really important piece for transmissive education, learning about sustainability, learning about climate change, learning about gender equity. But the important key enabler for us is learning to take action. I'm shared in the chat, or hopefully Ree has, and Tal has shared in the chat, our EFS Guide for Educators. I'd encourage you to have a look at that, engage with that, be critical, and let us know what you think around that. I want to start with, in there, I'm not sure what page, we actually have a way to think about, if you're a new educator or new in this space, of how to actually start thinking and embedding EFS into the curriculum. Thanks, Ray. And what I would recommend, if you're just a new educator or a new academic thinking about this, is start not big, but very small, with very, very doable and practical steps of examining your own subject, examining the content of your subject, and start to think about components that you can actually not add on, but change and leverage into some education for sustainability concepts and introduce them. And I'll just give you a couple of key examples, and then we will finish on that. Oh, the ETP team at Western Sydney, thanks, Kristen, she's come in for that. We've got, for instance, we have a very strong media and design school. In our media studies, second year students actually have to do screen media, they have to do a documentary. Those students connect with our researchers on sustainability through an open textbook that we've got, and they're asked to engage in that way in creating a documentary on our researchers on sustainability, whether it's writ large, whether it's climate action, gender equity, or peace and justice and development. If you're teaching, or in law or social science, teaching a unit about democracy, for instance, make some connections between democracy and young people's empowerment, and possibly link to the global climate change movement, which is a democratic movement of young people advocating for change. Another example is English literature is sometimes a really hard subject to make connections with sustainability. Embed sustainability readings from environmental humanities, for example, in that, and then start to engage with the practices and the core concepts of EFS, which is around encouraging critical and creative thinking, holistic systemic connectivity, and participatory action learning, which actually we're all doing really well today. I'm not going to talk too much more. But what I really wanted to do is just spend a minute acknowledging the incredible work of Tal and Ree in keeping us moving forward together. It is without you both coming together and doing this and bringing us together, we're missing one of the core platforms of education for sustainable development, which is the idea that it is participatory, it's action learning, and we move forward in the complexity of this time together. So I cannot thank you enough. I think that the work you do, the preparation particularly that you've done for these sessions, and I know you do them for all sessions, is incredible. And it is our joint work together that in these dark, precarious times for all of us at the moment that keeps us going. So thank you very much. Without further ado, I will be moderating the chat and trying to move that forward at the end of this. But without further ado, I'm really pleased to introduce Maryam Sharifkhani. She's a postdoctorate fellow at the Vice Chancellor's Office in the University of Canterbury. Over to you, Maryam, and I will give you 5 minutes, and if you're going close, I'll give you another minute apart from that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jen, for your wonderful opening. And yeah, I'm just checking if I'm sharing the right screen.
Yes, looks good.
Okay, cool. Great. Kia ora, everyone. My name is Maryam, and I'm presenting part of our research on integrating sustainable development goals into curriculum on behalf of our team at Sustainability Hub. And I'm very pleased to be here. One of the key part of our mission at Sustainability Hub is to make a meaningful progress and foster culture of sustainability on campus. So before we start this progress, we think we need to understand where we currently stand. And that's why our team decided to start with a stock take approach and doing an assessment of how SDGs are currently understand and integrated into our curriculum. So previously we used a keyword search across course outlines and titles to get a rough idea of which courses were aligned with SDGs. However, we realized this approach had limitations, and we were not sure if the data truly reflect how lecturers understood and apply SDGs into their teachings. We began our research with an educational survey designed to introduce the SDGs to course coordinators. And in this survey, we asked course coordinators about their current course content and how it aligns with the SDGs. And we put some example here from the responses. And after the survey, we didn't stop there, and we tracked the changes in SDGs integration over the time, specifically from 2023 to 2024. And this allowed us to see how educators' awareness and practice evolved as a result of this survey. It is important to note that our goal was not to enforce a rigid framework or tell our educators what exactly to do. Instead, we want to conduct the research to understand how they already knew about SDGs and where the opportunities for improvement. And we also aim to encourage a voluntary inclusion of SDGs into the curriculum. So one of the key insights from the survey was that the keywords research method we initially used to identify SDG online courses had significant limitation, and while it provided a quick overview, it was full of false positive and false negatives. And for example, as you can see in this diagram, that some courses appear strongly aligned with SDGs based on the keyword turn out to have a little meaningful connection when we survey the course coordinators. Conversely, some courses that didn't show up in the keyword search were identified as strongly aligned with the SDGs through the survey. In fact, even though we've only surveyed about 20% of the courses so far, the survey has already identified more SDGs aligned courses than the keyword search did across the entire university. Another we also had other interesting findings and sometimes surprising findings. One of the surprising findings was when we see that a specific course tagged with SDG that didn't seem to align with the content of at the first glance. For example, we found a microbiology course tagged with SDG 5, gender equality, and that makes us wonder, did the course coordinator fully understand the SDG indicator, and did they carefully consider how their course content aligned with the goal, or was it just a superficial connection? And this raised important question about how well lecturers understood the SDGs and whether they were critically engaged with this framework. And this prompted us to go deeper and conduct a follow-up interviews to understand the motivation behind these decisions. So we conducted interviews and we recruit 29 course coordinators. And one of the most important conclusions from our research is that the course coordinators are thinking about the SDG integration really carefully and deeply. And it was very reassuring and motivating finding for us. So as stated in the previous slide, we started this project. We were initially surprised by some of the responses, SDG tagging patterns. After talking to them, we realized that they had put lots of thoughts into how the course aligned with the SDGs. And this level of thoughtfulness and commitment is exactly what we hope to see for all of the course coordinators at UC. And this finding is not just a nice to know, it's a validation to our our approach. And by raising awareness and encouraging reflection, we help to create a culture where educators are actively thinking about how their teaching can contribute to more sustainable future. I'm very happy to share other part of our findings, some suggestion from the course coordinators to better align their courses or integrate SDGs into the courses, and happy to answer any question in a QA session. Thank you so much for your time. And that's me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Maryam. You've covered a lot in a very short time. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations for that. Just, I particularly like the non-didactic approach, because you're starting, and this is something for us to all to think about, you're starting where lecturers and academics are and moving forward. And I think that is, again, with that messaging of there's many parts and many paths up the mountains. And I also like it to be interesting for you to share that, and that connectivity or disconnect between keyword searches and scratching underneath the surface, because we're finding that as well. So we look forward to sharing your slides and hopefully a discussion in the Q&A about this. Our next speaker is Dr. Liz Barbour. She's the Education Fellow at Planetary Health, Faculty of Medicine, Nursing and Health Studies. Liza. Liza will be speaking, but she's also doing this work with Gitanjali Bedi, who is a senior lecturer at Monash Sustainable Development Institute. Before I actually throw to you, Liza, I just want to acknowledge Gitanjali Bedi. There's a really nice connection with Gitanjali and WSU through Dr. Susan Germain, who's one of the authors of our EFS strategy, and the work that they did 15 years ago in Swinburne on EFS in the vet sector. So it's this idea that we stand on the shoulders of many, and there has been work and knowledge in this sector for many years, and that we're moving forward together on that. So thank you very much, and thank you, Liza.
Thanks so much, Jen. Yes, I believe Gitanjali is online with us as well today from Monash Sustainable Development Institute. So I'm joining from Victoria's Mornington Peninsula, which is the unceded lands of the people of the Kulin Nations. I'm a dietitian. I facilitate sustainable food systems, education, and I'd like to acknowledge that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have maintained a truly sustainable food system here in Australia for over 60,000 years, based on sophisticated knowledges and value systems, and we just have so much to learn. So as I said, I'm a dietitian by trade, But the work I'm presenting on today was conducted in a 1-day-a-week education fellowship that I was awarded from the Faculty of Medicine, Nursing and Health Sciences here at Monash University. My mission was to increase the quantity and the quality of planetary health curricula being offered to health professions students. So essentially, better equipping our future doctors, pharmacists, nurses, physios, etc., to protect and restore planetary health and contribute to the SDGs. So how did this fellowship come to exist? Well, Gitanjali and I were actually part of a study. It was back in 2019. So we did a survey with 163 educators from 13 different health professions at Monash University. And what we learned was that majority of educators agreed that they needed to teach more planetary health education, but 2/3 of them reported not knowing how best to do that, particularly in terms of relating the really complex concepts to their own health field. So it's not surprising, really. We know that very few of us tasked with preparing the future workforce have actually had formal training in sustainable development, planetary health, etc. ourselves, probably similar to those online and listening in. And we also know that health professions educators are faced with lots of other challenges, similar to other disciplines, of course, so crowded curriculums. We also have really lagging regulatory bodies, so they're just not prioritising sustainable development in planetary health as well. So we asked these educators in the survey and some follow-up research what their recommendations are, and they recommended we need this multi-level leadership. So we need a top-down and a bottom-up approach. And really importantly, we need to privilege the student voice. There was lots of other recommendations, and the chat, I believe in the chat there'll be a bunch of resources shared. One of them is the study, the paper from that study. So fast forward a couple of years, and then the faculty put out these education fellowships, of which I was lucky to get the one focused on planetary health. So building on these survey results, I worked with our project team, including Gitanjali, to develop a multidisciplinary co-design intervention. We wanted to simultaneously empower our students in the process while also developing educators' confidence and capacity. So hence that real co-design approach. So we put a call out to educators throughout our faculty. We were hoping to get 2 or 3 educators involved because I only had a day a week for 18 months. I ended up recruiting 18 educators from 12 different disciplines, and I had to knock a few back because I just couldn't keep up with it. So great that there was so much interest in our faculty. So those the 18 champion educators then recruited champion students from their own cohort. And we were lucky to work with 48 of these incredible, passionate students throughout the co-design process. So together, the students and the educators from each discipline designed a learning and teaching activity. They then piloted it and refined it based on their own sort of reflections, but also we collected feedback from the student learners as well. So basically, one of the outcomes, not the only outcome, but one of the outcomes is that we now have this suite of 12 learning and teaching activities that have been tried and tested. They've been co-designed with and for learners, and those materials can now be used by educators throughout the faculty. So earlier this year, we showcased these materials to educators from the whole faculty. And we're basically just trying to make it easier for them to apply this planetary health lens to their existing teaching practice. So some links will be shared, including I started a little Google site at the start of my fellowship, and I've just added to it over the project. So that has a lot more specific details about the co-design approach and what the students and educators developed. But yeah, essentially the purpose was to empower educators to integrate more sustainable development and planetary health content into their teaching.
Fantastic. It's fantastic. And thank you, Liza. You exemplify, this project exemplifies, and I'm throwing to Jeff Scott, who I know is in listening on, is you're actually modelling successful case studies and successful ways of doing things for those that come after, and they can adapt that. And I think that's just wonderful. I also think the fellowship idea and this notion of accessing current opportunities in the university is a really good thing for us all to think about, and how we can join hands together. And I particularly love that partnership pedagogy and that co-design, which is one of the core elements that we're talking about in EFS. Okay, well, over to, I'm looking forward to the chat as well. A couple of questions have come through. I'd like to see more. Over to Emma Mills. Emma is a lecturer and director of student experience at School of Art and Design at University of New South Wales, and she's going to take us through her ESD community of practice. Thanks, Emma.
Thanks so much, Jen, and just acknowledging I'm coming to you from the unceded lands of the Gadigal people here in Paddington in Sydney, and thank you to my fellow panel members for those great presentations as well. I'm already inspired. So like Jen said, I am a lecturer in design here at the School of Art and Design, the University of New South Wales. As a designer, I do believe that bad design is responsible for a lot of the problems, the sustainability problems that we're facing, but good design will hopefully solve a lot of them too, particularly good education design. So I guess, like all of our institutions, UNSW is incredibly committed to accelerating that transition to a sustainable society and planet. And that's one of the pillars of our societal impact frameworks that we have at UNSW. However, I'm an education-focused academic, and I guess I've seen firsthand the challenges for educators at the coalface of teaching and learning to really effectively embed education for sustainable development. I'm going to bring it down to an acronym of ESD in curriculum. I mean, those challenges include, as I think Liza mentioned, overcrowded curriculum, and even just change fatigue after having survived, the tumultuous times of COVID. There is a lot of fatigue in educators out there to reframe and rechange their curriculum. So last year, together with some EF colleagues from the School of Business and also the Faculty of Medicine and Health, we received an education-focused project grant to run a university-wide study that really tried to tap into understanding staff understanding and commitment to embedding ESD in curriculum. And look, for us, the results revealed, as education-focused academics, we weren't surprised because we could see educators are really committed to supporting sustainability, but they don't have that agency. And I think, Liza, you talked about it as well. There's limited agency and awareness of the right frameworks and resources for effective implementation. So along with my EF colleague from the School of Business, George Jakuta, I established and co-lead the education-focused ESD community of practice. And this really responded to that need for, and again, Liza, there's so many synergies between what you're saying and what I'm saying, that there was that real need for that kind of ground up heuristic approach to embedding sustainability in curriculum. So we've we launched the ESD COP in late last year. We've now got over 150 active members of the COP that are not only academic staff, but also students. And then excitingly, a lot of members from across other institutions. We've really opened up this COP to welcome and I know there are a number of really fabulous COP members on even this panel to join us in, I guess, what we call an ecology of teaching and learning as a social practice. So we're sharing teaching practice and we're inspiring one another to learn from what we're doing, not only at a really grand top-down level, but really this kind of ground-up approach with micro innovations and also macro innovations in our teaching and transforming pedagogy to really effectively embed ESD. So, you know, unlike a working group, unlike a committee, an education-focused community of practice doesn't have KPIs. We're just there. And we're kind of defined, I guess, by our shared interest, and in this case, our sustainability in education. So it's again meeting in the middle. I think this top-down and this ground-up approach that we're taking, meeting somewhere in the middle to really effectively, as a university, embed sustainability in our curriculum, and then ultimately empower our students with those competencies that they need. So that's what I've been up to.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Emma. I was fortunate to be at University of New South Wales at your Teaching Commons 2 weeks ago, and I think we're talking about change, and I'm hearing these messages of change, top down, bottom up, and then ecologies and teaching ecologies. It's so important, the work you do, and the way that New South has pulled this together is exemplary. So thank you for sharing. So our last speaker, and we're going okay for time, is in with me in our room. My dear colleague, Brittany Vermeulen. Brittany's a Sustainability Program Manager at Western Sydney University. Britt and I have had the privilege to work with Britt for the last 12 years, which doesn't feel like that, Britt. Sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. And Britt's just going to give an update on the ACT Sustainability Literacy and Cultural Survey Working Group. So thanks, Britt.
Thank you, Jen.
I'm doing it.
We're just dealing with some internal room tech issues. But yes, thank you so much for having me, and we're really excited to provide this update. I guess there's significant interest in investment in rankings and reporting and how we actually are measuring all these ideas around ESD. You know, metrics and that sort of thing aren't something new to the sector. The SDGs are a great representation of that, and as are the Times Higher Ed impact rankings. So in response to this idea, earlier this year, we formed an ACTS working group. It's called the Sustainability Surveys Group. And it was really established to support a regionally relevant survey. We've got two streams. One stream is sustainability literacy, and one stream is the culture survey. The co-chairs of this working group are Western Sydney University, University of Tasmania, and Australian National University. And shout out to Carmen and Juliet, who are in the audience with us today. And as co-chairs, we're really trying to help the sector sort of move on how we can work together to co-design a standardized set of core survey questions that will help us benchmark and track sustainability knowledge, or ESD knowledge in particular in that literacy space, but also how we actually understand and articulate cultures amongst our staff and students, which is values, beliefs, aspirations, behaviours, and perceptions, and how we actually look at developing a methodology that's going to help us understand that across the sector. That's a really big task, and it's something that we're doing with over 20 Australian universities. And we hope that it will become a tool for the Australasian tertiary sector to actually pick up and use. So by understanding these aspects and using data and data visualization to drive strategy or to integrate ESD into university practices, and also using it as a benchmarking tool, we really hope that it'll be able to serve our own personal institutional agendas while being something bigger than that as well. So what we've committed to, as I've said, is developing a survey tool, which we hope will be available for a pilot by the end of this year. There's still a lot for us as a collective working group to do to get to that point, but it is something we're really excited about being able to provide. It will be open access to anybody that's not even in the working group. So if you are not one of the 20 universities represented in the working group, you will still have access to embed this tool in your own institutions, whether you want to do the culture, whether you want to do literacy, or both. The only ask that we have is that you engage with the sector and share your results so that we can start benchmarking some really core foundational ESD activities, whether it's sustainability leadership, sustainability commitments, general student knowledge and awareness of the goals or particular ESD components. We're just really excited. So in conclusion, to reiterate, our goal is to provide a comprehensive sector-wide tool that not only helps us understand our student and staff knowledge, values, and awareness of sustainability, but we hope can drive meaningful change and inform practice across the sector. As I said, working group, we have nobody from New Zealand. So this is my little plug. If there's any New Zealand academics or professional staff out there that would love to join our working group, we would love to have you. And we look forward to be able to provide this tool later in the year for the sector to use. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brett. You're exemplar at moving through with your allotted time. I want to actually commend this work on several points and several levels, notwithstanding that we do accept that this is a sustainability knowledge check, essentially. But we are seeing this at particularly, whether you're wedded to the rankings or not, our institution is, but at a global level and also a national level, it is becoming clear that it's not enough for institutions to have a commitment to ESD. We can provide programs and examples of where ESD is happening in practice across the curriculum, but there is a move, particularly globally, around, okay, assess it. What does this mean? And this is a starting point. This work is really critically important, particularly in an Australian context. We didn't want to see it at a global level. I want to shout out to UTAS, and again, on whose shoulders we stand and we learn our way forward, this notion that we're continually collaboratively moving forward together. UTAS adapted this survey from STARS, the US Sustainability Tracking and Assessment reporting. So we're standing on the shoulders of many and moving forward. And the idea is to actually make this open access and free as much as we can. We're still working forward what that looks like in terms of basically the analytics, et cetera. But it's not to be exorbitantly expensive, which is what some other global options are. Anyway, that wraps up. I'm sorry, I just wanted to finish off on that. That wraps up. A couple of questions have come through first on the Q&A, which if you'll allow me, I'll go through that first. And the first one is from Jinky Trevelyan. Thank you, Jinky. That came through really early. Could Maryam please speak to the barriers and support from the university that were identified in the interviews?
Yeah. Kia ora. That's
Maryam?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Kia ora. Thank you so much for your question. Different lecturers raise different barriers and suggestions. So some lecturers are quite aware of the importance of SDGs and they kind of integrate SDGs, but some of the lecturers still not sure how to integrate or weave the SDGs into the curriculum, and they need support from, for example, Sustainability Hub or other sectors at our university to support them to change and amend their curriculum. So all of them like kind of acknowledge that this is a very like kind of good interdisciplinary framework, but because they don't have knowledge of on all the, for example, a lecturer in computer engineering may not have a lot of information about gender equity, and so they like kind of suggest a community of practice, gathering together. I mean, all the lecturers, the course coordinators, gathering together and talking about some real world issues that they can bring to the class. And other lecturers also suggest for like kind of workshops or I don't know, guidelines, but yeah, definitely the time is one major problem for all the lecturers, that they don't have like kind of time to put another like kind of policy or framework on top of their curriculum, and they definitely need support in that sense. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, Maryam. I'll move to the next question in our Q&A, and I love this one. I will actually take one of the, I will actually provide one answer and then throw this open to our panel. Given that ESD can serve as a key enabler in achieving the SDGs, why is it difficult to integrate ESD effectively into higher education curriculum pedagogy? And how can, I love this question, thank you, and how can institutional and government policy frameworks best support educators in sustaining long-term engagement and commitment? Thank you so much for this question. I will actually just briefly say government policy frameworks are so critical in this, and we know that it's lacking in the Australian context. The Indian University Grants Commission in 2022-2023 actually mandated climate change and environmental and sustainability education across their entire higher education landscaping, because the Indian government are taking the SDGs really seriously in terms of integrating them through various levels of regional, state and federal governments. Because of the intersectionality and the importance of the SDGs, particularly as it relates to good health and well-being and water, health and sanitation. I'm going to ask my other panelists now to respond on institutional policy frameworks to support educators. Anybody like to take that, please?
I can probably start. I'm certainly not an expert on institutional policy frameworks. And look, I come from an institution that does have an incredibly strong policy framework. But there is, I mean, what we've found in our community practice is there is a disconnect between the frameworks and the coalface of teaching and learning. And I know educators are fatigued with all these challenges. I mean, at the moment we're faced with AI. We've just come out of COVID. And so trying to find space for educators to rethink their curriculum through a sustainability lens is really difficult. And I guess we're trying to, through our COP, create this kind of sense of social practice, changing curriculum through shared practice. So I think it has to come from the top, but it also has to come from the bottom. And I know I've already said that, and Liza has too, but I think it's so critical. But it's really important that institutions recognise what we're trying to do as educators at the coalface and at the bottom, and how to kind of inspire our colleagues to really take the time. And I know there's workload issues with that, but really inspire our colleagues to make those changes. And maybe I'll hand over to Liza to kind of, I don't know, I can see you might be leaning in there to add on to that.
Yeah, I'm happy to add on. Thanks, Emma. So at Monash University, we have our Impact 2030 agenda, and two of the three grand challenges are climate change and thriving communities. So that is embedded in everything that we do, all our reporting, everything. And so it almost gives permission for those of us educators who are really passionate about this content to prioritise it. But then the challenge still is that for educators that aren't particularly passionate about this, I think until we get accreditation bodies and regulation that the educators actually have to speak to and report to, I don't think that we'll see educators that aren't personally interested and passionate about this topic changing their practice, which it's just a challenge that I guess we have to figure a way to overcome.
Thanks. Thanks so much, Liza. We'll move on now. I think this is something we could actually just have another seminar on, just putting it out there, Ree and Tal. Julia Caldecott, will the open access sustainability literacy tool differ from Sula test, and if so, how? I'll ask Britt to answer that, and then if Ree and Tal want to jump in. Thank you. Then I've got 2 more in the chat, and we're going to go pretty well for time.
The Sula test tool and our tool, the difference will be that the survey that we are working on as a sector will be contextual. So I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the Sula test questions, but they are very high level, and myself as a sustainability practitioner for over a decade struggled to answer some of those questions. It's an opportunity to think about traditional knowledges and its integration into sustainability and sustainability education, which I don't see in the Sula test tool. And particularly for us as an institution, it's one of our graduate attributes. So it's something that we would really want to see students engaging with in that context. The other bonus, I guess, is that we're offering it for free. So Sula test is a fee for use sort of setup, and we're seeing that this tool that we're trying to work on together as a sector has that equity lens that would allow us all to be able to use it, as well as benchmark, which will hopefully give us a better insight to the things that we need to do as a sector to move forward on this ESD agenda.
The response in the chat from Julia, thank you, Julia, is fabulous. Thank you, thank you, Brittany. This is from Sally Knowles, and I really I love all the questions, of course. In your work in integrating SDGs, how are you including the real world experiences of international students, etc., experiences of Global South students at the front lines of climate change? Would any of our panelists like to answer that question? And if not, I have a quick exemplar. Hands up. All right. Well, I might go then. I can give an example. I'm just giving you an example of this, and this is one of, we're seeing some sustainability fatigue across students, or eco-anxiety, or turning off. A number of, and this particularly comes from School of Education, a number of our practitioners are starting where students are. So there's a unit that we have in our undergraduate pre-service teacher program called Creativity and Cultural Wellbeing. There is a lecture in there on the SDGs, but the academic there actually starts with the students themselves and their communities. So she gives an example that she has a student that's from, and they have to engage creatively with an issue in their local community. So for instance, we've got students in there from Uruguay who started looking at the crisis of water and clean water and sanitation. We had students from the Pacifica who started looking at the connectivity between mental health and wellbeing in Pacifica communities. So it is very much a start with where the students are in their communities with their cultural heritage and knowledge. And that's one way that you can start to then develop and engage with students instead of the big issues up here from where they are, how they feel about that, and then what actions they can take with their community. I hope that helps in that one there. I think we're drawing to the end. Yeah, here we go. We're drawing to the end. Oh, we have one more question coming too. If there is time, I would love to hear any comments on the role of ESD experts and how they could partner with disciplinary educators.
Do you have a couple more questions that have come through? So I think we could do 1 or 2 on the Q&A, Jen.
Okay. Oh, Nick, thank you. Thank you, Nick. Sorry, I'm a little bit, my children call me boomers, but a boomer, so I'm a little bit IT illiterate. Liza, could you please elaborate on how you see the relationship between the concept of planetary health and the UN SDGs?
The concept of planetary health and the UN SDGs. I guess we've got there's this wonderful visual that we link to the field of health, so promoting human health, so individual health in the middle, but then wrapping around that we've got sort of global health, we've got One Health, that incorporates animals, humans, and the natural environment. And then wrapping all the way around that, we have planetary health. So it's essentially this foundational concept or philosophy that we need to prioritise to promote human health at all those levels. So yeah, it links, of course, health links to so many of the SDGs.
Thanks so much. There's some really nice comments coming through on sustainability literacy there. There's a last question from Rada. Thank you, Rada. Lots of institutions, individuals are involved in addressing climate change and the SDGs. Please suggest some ways we can act collectively. I might ask Ree, Tal, and our panelists to respond to that, please.
Oh, throwing Tal and I under the
No, I mean.
I mean, continue. Oh, sorry, I don't even have my camera turned on. I think continuing to get involved with groups. I mean, we've heard of several already on the session today. Community of practice, if not within your own institution, there are others that are looking to connect both regionally across Australia and New Zealand. Obviously, staying involved with the work that ACS and SDSN is doing. We're going to continue these conversations. So I think, but that's, you know, there's more work to be done on the action side of things. We are very good at coming together and talking about the problems and understanding the problems. How we move forward to get collective action and getting that, I think it comes back to how much senior leadership support we're getting from our institutions, regardless of whether we've got policy. I saw a comment come through on it all comes down to moving beyond the passion of individuals. Thanks, Kate's comment in the chat here. We rely heavily on the passion of individuals at the moment. We do not have the funding and resources that we need to get real action on this. So I think how we can come together collectively and do more work in that space to advocate for more resourcing and more funding allocation to support this work is where we're going to see some real action coming through. Emma, you've unmuted there. Do you want to jump in on that one?
Oh, yeah, sure. Thanks, Rhiannon. And I just, following on for that, really encourage the people who are on this seminar to please come and join our community of practice. We don't just sit around and talk about how bad things are. We just constantly are sharing practice with one another. And I think the key point is inspiring others to change, not forcing others to change. I mean, even yesterday we had a creative education for sustainable development get together with just staff in art and design talking about their little innovations in teaching, and everyone went away with feeling inspired and going, okay, I didn't realize sustainability was just about teaching climate science. It's about teaching competencies. It's about teaching co-design, collaborative practice. And that's one of the shifts just in these conversations, these kind of acts of social kind of engagement with one another. And for us in the COP, it's about engaging, you know, as a designer, I'm learning from someone in engineering, in medicine, in, you know, optometry. It's I think there's a lot to be said from this kind of sharing of practice and inspiring each other, and particularly inspiring those who are feeling completely overworked and not, you know, not confident or empowered. And it's empowering one another. So through this kind of collective practice, please come and join us, and we'd love to kind of share what we're doing and have you share what you're doing with us. So just like Jen did last week at UNSW, which was amazing.
And just to add to that, there are more and more resources coming online that can support the upskilling in terms of knowledge around sustainability, around climate change for educators. So trying to close that knowledge gap. Another plug to University of Tasmania for they've got their how do you pronounce it? MOOC? I don't know how you say it. Yeah, a new MOOC coming online, a free resource.
All that.
For climate change that, you know, you can be getting people to going through and completing that to increase their knowledge and skills. There's a lot of organizations are doing carbon literacy training. So we do this at ACS, and some of the other institutions are doing that. you know, to provide that extra knowledge for people that are then responsible for going on and incorporating this into their teaching and learning. So we're seeing a lot more of those resources come online. So taking advantage of that can help as well.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to wrap up, and I'm going to ask, and I'm going to throw each of our panelists under the bus and then finish myself. Can each of you share one thing, just briefly, that you would like to leave with the audiences as our gift? Okay. Britt, I'm going to start with you and turn down my sound.
I would say my experience of doing our pilot survey is there is a lot of generosity in this sector, and to lean into that, because we are all collectively working towards the same goal, which is a better world. So yeah, please don't feel alone, and please feel free to use all of us as a resource to help you move forward as well.
Thank you, Britt. I'm just going to go across the screen. Emma?
Thanks, Jen. I think it's important to remember as we're moving forward the evolution of sustainability, and remembering that we have the SDGs, but there are other frameworks, pluriversal frameworks, that we need to be recognising, and cultural sustainability is a really important focus for us, as well as the SDGs. So that's something I'm going to, you know, throwing that out there, but also please come and join us at the ESD COP. There's a link in the chat.
Thanks so much, Liza.
Yeah, I would just say to keep practicing our own humility and vulnerability as educators, and really embracing that opportunity to work hand in hand with our students and bring them along as part of the mission.
Maryam, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I can just refer to Henry Duro, a wonderful educator and scholar, that our universities at the moment are very fit into new liberal agenda. And what we can do at the moment is to change the narrative, this new liberal narrative, to sustainable narrative. And yeah, just pushing our universities to this, to this agenda. Yeah.
Thank you. As we're coming to a close, my take home is that this is not about more education. This is not about loading you up with more. This is around your pedagogical practice. It is really important to get that clear, and how we actually adjust our pedagogical practices to the challenges of these precarious times. So thank you so much. Thank you. It is always inspiring. I always learn. Thank you so much. And I'll ask Reid to wrap up and finish.
Thanks so much, Jen, and thank you for moderating. And I think you are our gift for all the amazing work that you've been doing for so long in the sector. So thank you for being an inspiration and being with us today. I extend that to all of our speakers, not just on today's session, but those that have joined us over the last 2 weeks and have taken part in this 2025 forum series. Just through this builds on a lot of work that we've been doing over the years. Tal shared, I know lots of things have come through in the chat. We will be collating all of those links and resources, so thank you for those that have shared. One Tal put in there was some educator resources, so that's an ongoing document that we continue to add to. So if you have something that you would like to add to that, please send it through, but also have a look at it for resources that you can utilize yourself. So a really diverse and thoughtful discussion to wrap up today, and quite a fitting way, I think, to close out the 2 weeks of conversations that we've been having around how we can put education for the SDGs into practice. I think today's session really has reminded us that educators are at the heart of this transformation, and that by empowering them with the right support and the resources and communities of practice, that we really can embed sustainability across curriculum and across disciplines. So thank you all. As a final reminder, we will be sending a follow-up email next week. So this will have all of the recordings from all of the sessions, and any of the key resources that, sorry, I'm just gonna do something with that. There we go. I think Jen's doing some, got some crazy things going on, a bit distracting there. So all of the resources that have been shared throughout the forum, and again, I encourage you to complete the feedback survey that you'll be sent to let us know how you found the sessions and how we can continue to improve. So this officially wraps up us for the 2025 forum series, but our work in this space is far from over. So ACS and SDSN Australia, New Zealand Pacific will continue our collaboration. So please stay connected, keep sharing your ideas and experiences, and continue supporting each other on this journey. So a final huge thank you again from ACS and SDSN, our speakers, and to all of you for being a part of this growing community. We will see you again soon.